He's the man to do the damage. Oh! As he looks for another headshot.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Richard Lewis Show. I am your host, Richard Lewis, and the guest this time around is the man that many people are saying is the best Valorant player in the world right now. Such lofty titles. It is, of course, Ye from OpTic, the best player in the world. But not good enough for Riot's league, apparently. Lots to talk about. I'll tell you, I know it's been hectic, brother. It's really weird for me because I had all these like great ideas about what we were going to talk about, and then recent news has kind of just torpedoed any plans I had. So I'm guessing it's been crazy.
It's been a little wild. Yeah, it has been like really wild. I think a lot of us were probably expecting to probably make the league. I don't think like anyone really on the team was expecting that we weren't. We knew there was like a chance, obviously, just depending on like, because we're not sure exactly what criteria they use to judge teams, but from what I understand, and I don't think maybe a lot of fans understood, is like their criteria was never like performance based. So it didn't really matter like the results. It was all about, I think the criteria was like how you contribute to the Valorant ecosystem. And it's a little bit vague. So I didn't know really what that meant, but obviously it's like really disappointing, you know, especially for the franchise league when, you know, maybe arguably like the one of the best Valorant teams just doesn't make it in.
Yeah,
it's a little disappointing. But
you know, I was going to ask you right out the gate about whether or not you had any kind of insight into why you didn't make it. Because one thing Riot will do is when they, you know, make these decisions, they're usually decent enough about giving feedback. I'll certainly credit them for that. If they dislike something you've done, that they certainly don't mind telling you about it. But I was seeing other people on like social media saying, you know, like other teams that didn't get in, and they were going, well, it's obvious they've picked people with the biggest social media followings, or, you know, they've picked people that have been in other games and worked with Riot. And it's like, OpTic fulfill, you know, and the group with OpTic and all the people, they all fulfill the criteria of being like massively, you know, massive influencers. They've got people who've worked with, you know, Riot before on the books. They've got people who are familiar with like loads of other esports titles and had success there. There doesn't seem to be a clear reason to deny OpTic entry into the league at this time.
Yeah, I would say so too. I mean, I do think we have a pretty big social media following. And you can even see in like some of the viewership with our games. So I'm not sure if that's just because like maybe we're the only NA team left, but like usually when not the brag, but
no, for real, it's true.
but yeah, when we do play these international matches, usually the viewership has always been like pretty good. So it was a little surprising. It might have been due to like maybe some bad blood in the past, because I think there was like a whole situation with like OpTic and Infinite like a while ago. But to me, I don't know if that would be a reason why, because like obviously they're under like new management now. They're worth a different org than like Infinite Esports, you know, back then. But yeah, it's like it's hard to say, and I would assume it's maybe because a lot of those other teams have like much bigger like YouTube presence, or they have like a very strong like relationship with them in League of Legends and like other games. And you know, I think EG, for example, is like one of those where it's just like they've shown to like really invest in their teams, and like I think they've built like a championship roster like under Riot, under their partnership. Like they're showing to invest. So that might be a reason, but it's hard to say. You know, it's hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, because again, you know, TSM not making it, right? So it's like you think you've cracked the Enigma code and figured out what Riot's criteria are. You know, TSM not being in there, I feel that was. I mean, you know, I'll be honest. As we were saying before we went live, I kind of predicted that one, but I think it surprised a lot of people too, given the relationship they've had in the past and just how big of a brand it is, right?
Yeah, so I think with that, it might have been because of some of the original stuff that came out.
Mm,
Obviously, there's been like a whole bunch of drama, and you've even seen the stuff with like G2 and Carlos.
yeah.
Um, I that might have played like a role in it because I think they did issue some form of penalty.
Mm,
I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I think they did find something out. And not to mention, I think I also heard that they tried to pull out of league once, so maybe they were like really like, that's something we don't want to work with, and maybe that's why they get in because it doesn't make sense otherwise. Because if I'm not mistaken, they are like the biggest like esports org in the world right now, and not to mention like they basically
yeah.
built League of Legends up. you know?
I
So
think they were the highest valued esports org, but those Forbes ratings are all bullshit.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's
like
pretty hard.
yeah, I mean it's like but yeah, it's just weird. There was they've got a guy called like Walter. He's like one of their other manager types. I don't know the exact title he holds. I
Mm,
want to say is it VP of operations or something? I don't know. But anyway,
right.
he put out a message saying they were disappointed and that
Mm,
they're going to rebuild the management structure and everything. And I kind of took that to say, like, listen, if you let us
yeah.
in next time, Reggie won't be there, he won't be involved. That was
Gotcha.
me reading between the lines. So yeah, just really really strange, because I think a lot of people backed that Riot would just pick the most popular, and
Yeah,
you and
that's what I
TSM
was
is
expecting
crazy.
to. Yeah, that's what I was expecting to. Is like they probably get like the big orgs right now that are like really performing in international events, and because obviously that probably makes the most sense,
Mm.
especially if you're trying to build like a franchise league where it's like the best teams that you can get and that sort of thing. That's the idea I had in my head, but I think that they're probably taking an approach where they're trying to find like the best orgs like over like a very long term period,
Mm.
but I it's hard to say, I'm kind of just guessing, at this point.
Yeah, but so no official feedback from Riot for you guys yet.
There might be some official feedback, but I don't know about it. I'd
Mm.
have to ask my owner, but as far as I'm aware, he didn't get much. I could be wrong though.
Mm. So just from a player perspective, then, what was the reaction like, and then how has that reaction changed, if at all, in the subsequent, days after the decision?
Well, it was kind of like we kind of knew it was a possibility, especially with like the whole like franchise league coming up. Like, regardless of whether or not OpTic made it, there was maybe a chance that we would split up regardless, just because of it's going to be like some bidding frenzy war where like everyone's trying to
Mm.
put together like the strongest teams, and they're going to be whipping out the venture capitalist cash and
Yeah.
trying to get who they can. But kind of the big reaction was like we didn't make it, and um, it was just like, well, guys, I mean, maybe we can try to find somewhere else to go to, see if there's like another org interested, but it it's pretty hard to like buy out like an entire roster, if I'm being honest with
Mm.
you.
Yeah.
And we have like basically like 4 or 5 like buyouts, and especially for a team, I guess for us that was succeeding and doing really well, to pay that much money and also pay like some of the salaries, it would be like very hard, and most likely we would have to split up. But there's still a possibility we stay together. We are talking with like a few different people, but it's just a situation in which like it is really hard, unfortunately.
Yeah. Have you guys, given a lot of thought to, kind of what a breakup of the Beatles, would look like? Because I mean, you guys have
Yeah,
been together since 2021, right? Or a bit longer. I don't know. Obviously, back when you
yeah,
were Envy.
it's been about like a year and a half. Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
about a year and a half, and it's we've had like a pretty good successful journey. I mean, like as soon as I joined, we made the first like that first international event, which was like Berlin. We placed second. Had a little rough time at champs,
Mm.
just because like some of our guys got COVID mid event,
Yeah.
which was obviously that's a little bit rough. And then ever since then, at least for the start of this year, we placed like first, won our big first international title, which is I was really happy about, because at least for like NA in general in these sports, not a lot of teams win.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like it's been rough, and that's something I kind of like wanted to change with Valorant. But we managed to win that. We placed third at the next, and obviously most recently we placed second, which kind of sad, but I mean overall pretty successful year. So yeah, it's sad that like the way the team like ends, you know, the way it ends is like stuff that's like outside our control, you know, ultimately. It's
So I mean,
it's a little sad.
It does sound pretty final. Then I guess you guys are bracing for the worst and expecting
Yeah.
to be in other teams.
I mean, yeah, I think that's probably the biggest possibility, but yeah, it's hard to say at this very moment. You know, it really is. It's just some teams, at least in the league right now, for example, aren't even like willing to pay for buyouts. You know, like that. Basically, it's just like, no, sorry, we don't want to pay any buyouts, but you know, you can join us, but we're not going to be able to do that. You know, so it's just like we're just in a situation where it's like kind of forced unless we want to do something where it's like we risk playing kind of like in the tier 2 division. And essentially what that is like I think it's like one or two teams you spend your entire year and you're able to qualify it into the partnership league by just like pure results. But it's kind of it kind of sucks like as a competitor because you're basically just going to be playing in like a lower tier with no guarantee of you like making it in.
Yeah.
And not to mention like just like you're not going to be able to play like international tournaments and stuff like that. You're just going to be kind of stuck in limbo, and you know it's just kind of a rough place to be, you know, if you want to stick with your guys.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a weird situation looking from the outside, because what seems to be implicit is that for the good teams, the teams that were in consideration to be in the franchise league, those players, even though they're under contract, they're still very much in the shop window. And for the best of them, the expectation is they'll be airlifted into the league one way or the other. Has the organization, has management said to you whether or not they'd be willing to like forego buyouts, for example, so you could join a team that provides you with a better opportunity? Has there been any talks like that?
I mean, we talked a little bit, but I also understand it kind of like from the management perspective, where it's like,
oh, there's no way you'd be getting out your contract if it was me. Fuck that. You're an asset now, brother.
So to give like a little bit of context, you know, they spent like a whole bunch of money, for example, on my buyout. Like I forget the exact number. It was something, you know, maybe a little bit less than like $500,000 to get me from like box over to like Envy. It was extremely massive buyout. So it's like a situation in which like I think from their perspective, you know, they do want to at least get like somewhat of like a return, you know, because like now that you've been not even like knocked out of the partnership league, you don't have like anything. Now you're just kind of like you're kind of just stuck in like a weird situation. So yeah, I think teams are going to be forced to pay a buyout, but it is with a caveat, because like you're also in a situation now, if you're like an org owner and you have players that like you need to sell, well, I kind of just said it there, you kind of need to sell them, because otherwise it's gonna, not only will it kind of be like bad for the org, but like that player's value once like the franchise league officially like concludes, like you're not going to be able to make much money, and plus you're just also paying salaries. So
I was just going to say, not to mention North American organizations, they don't exactly fucking haggle when it comes to salaries. They just like go, well, what have I got to pay you to get you to come and play for me? And then obviously if you don't get in the franchise league, you're fucked, because you got like a 3-year contract and you're paying some kid $30,000 a month, you know?
No, exactly.
But yeah, so I mean, I know right now, and you don't have to say anything, obviously, if you don't want to, but I know right now, obviously, your hot property, you again, widely regarded as currently the best player in the world. Don't get a big head, obviously, because, you know, they were saying that about TENS like a fucking year ago.
It's like superficial stuff, in my opinion. It's like, I feel like everyone has like a differing opinion on like who's the best person in the world, you know, like everyone, you can look at like any sport, right? Basketball, like everyone argues like who's the greatest, you know, football, you know, so on and so forth. But you're right. I guess I do have like, quite a few offers.
Yeah.
I've been getting a few interesting ones. Excuse me. But I mean, there's like a few like few teams like in the APAC region. Like I got like one, and they offered some ludicrous amount, like a 1 million like per year like contract and stuff like that. But it's like with the caveat I have to move all the way out there and like stuff like that. I'm just like,
you know what I mean? Yeah. I listen. I don't know what to tell you. It's a balancing act, because obviously you've got to, you got to be at a team you want to be at. You got to be at a team that you feel can compete. But sometimes, I see a lot of these esports competitors, whining about like living abroad or whatever. And I get it's tough, but I'm from a generation of guys that, went on the oil rigs or joined the army, and you were away from home for months at a time, working very dangerous jobs for a fraction of the money.
Yeah.
So sometimes you do have to make some sacrifices, because esports isn't forever.
No, I do agree with you. I do 100% agree with you. It's just, it's also a situation as well where it's like, as you said, it's like you got to find a team you like want to play at and stuff like that. But also it's just like, would I find like happiness? Because like for me, like my aspiration is like, I want to win championships. I want to leave something behind to, I want other people to look at and, fulfill their own passions, like take that as motivation to find their like own passion. It basically inspire others, right? And it's like, am I able to achieve that same goal like as well, like over there? Yes, there's like the monetary game, but there's also just like, would I be happy? And like that's the question. I is that something I want to do? And it's just like, I don't know if I could fulfill my same goals like over there, essentially.
Yeah, I get it.
Not to mention just like, the whole like culture difference, but I for me as well, I guess to also finish on that, I also don't have problems like moving to like Europe and like other regions like that. I also think it'd be pretty cool. Not gonna lie, but yeah, it's timing, right?
Yeah, well, everything's timing. Yeah, for sure. It's weird because when Riot sort of made this announcement, they also did say that there was going to be a way into the league in future, and they were going to clarify all of that. Is there any chance whatsoever you tough it out, stay together as 5, and go the fucking scenic route to get into the league in like a year's time? I mean,
there's definitely a chance. Let's just say that there's definitely a chance.
Okay.
There was like quite a massive offer, I think, to do that, but obviously the details are still being like worked out, because there is a chance that might happen, but like I said, we'll just have to see that. It's still the details. There was one offer like that, I can tell you that though.
Okay, interesting. Well, I mean, look, whichever way it goes, I think, and we'll start talking about that now. I think the achievements of the OpTic team over the course of the year, I know there's been some second places and everything, and probably thinking back to the start of the first quarter of the year, losing against the Guard and everything. Probably that one's a bit of a stinger, but I think in general,
that was a little rough.
You've established yourself as, one of the most consistent teams. You're in a very good groove right now, built up a great rivalry with Loud. And for me, I think it would be very strange to think about a team as good as you operating outside of the context of the World Elite. It would just be like really weird. Like if a fucking Astralis type player never went to like a CSGO LAN or whatever, They had their own circuit.
It would be something like that where, obviously I don't want to compare us to like Astralis, because like obviously those guys won 4 majors and we're super dominant, but it would be like something similar, I guess, in that context, where it's like Astralis can only play like tier 2. Now, we
were worried about that happening. If you remember when Blast started, and they were all being called Blastralis, and they were missing tournaments and stuff. So it is super weird, but the difference was obviously, there were still tier 1 teams going to those other tournaments. And so, I guess I wouldn't want to see your team in some weird situation where you're like the bullies in the schoolyard, you're playing, at a tier 2 level when you're clearly a tier 1 team. Because I'm probably a bit ignorant, but what would the circuit look like for you guys now operating outside of that league if you did stay together? What type of things would you be doing?
I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head, because I don't know if it's like all the details have been like officially announced. They've announced like, you know, there's a tier 2 division, but I'm not exactly sure like how that would look exactly.
Yeah.
From what I understand, I think it would be mostly like domestic tournaments.
Okay.
You wouldn't go to like any international tournaments as far as I'm aware. It'd be all like domestic. And I think the best like domestic team that comes through with like basically all the players who were like left out of franchising, it basically they would run like a tournament, and you know the best ones of, I guess, the Americas division, basically including Brazil, LATAM, and like all those other teams, the best teams that come through that tier 2 division, those domestic tournaments, basically you would get promoted to the tier 1 partnership league for like about 2 years. If that makes sense.
yeah, I get it totally. You know, it's kind of like, because obviously having seen Riot build a league before, you know, what happened pretty much with League of Legends was they just turned everything the fuck off. You know, it was like literally, it was like being the last one to leave a party. You just turn the fucking lights off, leave the empties, fuck it, and you know, there wasn't a tier 2 essentially. You were either in the club or you were like collegiate or something like that. So you know, I guess my worry would be there wouldn't be anything for you, you know.
So something I'm a little worried about, and not to like jump over like the topics, is like
no, you go for it, brother.
Speaking around like the whole tier 2, and if like for example OpTic roster were to stay together, it's like it's also like a situation in which like would the OpTic roster still be as successful after like everyone has like changed their rosters, you know, like it would be like an entire year, and you know how like a year is in like esports, like, it's basically an eternity, and so much can change in like that short amount of time. So it's also just a massive risk, even if you want to play in like the tier 2 division. By the time you come like through it, even if you win it, you know, you might not be as successful, you know, or
exactly.
There might even be a situation where, you know, something happens and you're unable to get promoted, and now you're left in like a really rough spot. Like if you don't make that promotion, like it's just like that's rough. Because now your player value has just dropped dramatically, you know. So it's just there's so much risk, and not to mention you're also facing not like internationally. I guess it's technically internationally because it's like Brazil and LATAM, but you're also facing like some really good teams like from those regions, like the best teams from those regions as well. So it's like it's not as easy as it may seem, you know.
Oh, totally. I think as well, if I know enough about esports history, one of the things that always happens in every esport ever is NA start off really, really strong. They're early uptakers. They might even be the best in the world at it. And then other regions come and they've got hungrier players that are incentivized in a way that others aren't. Complacency sets in among the American stars because they're in the spotlight and they get to live their little Z-list celebrity fantasies, and the whole scene sort of like just pancakes in on itself. You know, and you know what I'm talking about, because obviously you know you've come from CSGO, right? So
no, that's always kind of like been a really big issue. Something I've noticed that I think what ends up happening a lot of the time as well is like NA rises to the top, or they're at the like top of the scene, and there's not really like that knowledge and like maybe that experience only stays there, and none of it gets transferred basically over to like the younger players. Like I remember my time during like Counter-Strike, for example, there was not really any like coaches, like really good coaches, nor like even people who were once at the top of the scene. Usually like once they get kicked out, they just leave completely. And now it's like, it creates like an effect almost where it's just like the people at the top have all this experience, all this knowledge. And then like, you just have like all these younger players who, you know, they're just super raw. And the only way they're going to get that experience, the only way they're going to get that like knowledge and that sort of thing is by, you know, maybe the occasional like 10 mans with those guys where, it just becomes like, yeah, it's just rough.
Sure.
It's just a rough situation, from what I've seen. But thankfully, I think it's getting a little bit better. I've been starting to see like more and more like coaches who are actually able to like develop players like a little bit more.
Well, I think that's what's interesting about your team, right? Because, obviously I remember when you were over in Complexity. So when you popped up on my radar back in like 2017 or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
And I think, you and FNS and probably to a lesser extent, Victor, you guys had direct experience of watching kind of all of the long-term problems with American CS like play out to its like absolute worst conclusion. Because you were on that Lazarus team that got the ESL Pro League slot pulled from it, right?
Yeah, that was that when that happened, I thought that was like the final like really like nail in the coffin for the North American scene. Because like essentially what happened is like you basically have 5 to maybe 10 players that now have like in the entirety of the America had to have like guaranteed like salaries and that sort of thing. And everybody beneath them, whether it be like tier 2, tier 3, essentially just wipe them off,
Yeah.
It became like a situation, if I'm not mistaken, it's like the only way you were going to get like any professional experience or go to like any international lands or something like that, I think you had to build a 5-man team with like hoping to find 5 players that complement each other, work well together. Maybe you can also find like a coach that's willing to win the experience, maybe like an analyst or something like that were willing to work for free.
Yeah.
Not to mention the 5 players as well. You would have to do that, practice, hope you're good enough to first get through like both America and the Brazilian regions. Obviously Brazil has always been like a super strong and tough region. You have to qualify for that. Then you have to go to another land against tier 2 salary pulling coach and staff that have tons of experience against top 1. Also win against that, and then you might have a chance to finally get into the pro league division. And it just became like a situation where it's just like, I don't know if that's realistic.
No, I mean, just for the Valorant fans as well that maybe didn't follow that. Basically, what happened, kids, listen up, Zoomers, and let me tell you a tale of woe from Counter-Strike. They basically ESL Pro League had given out these slots. Pro League is a very lucrative league to be in. It's regular play. You get revenue share. The slots are worth actual money. And so in NA, there were a number of teams that had their ESL took their slots away from them because they decided they needed to restructure the ESL Pro League and make orgs, bigger orgs, partners. And so they gave the big orgs the slots that these players had earned, fair and square. It remains to this day one of the most disgusting things I think I've ever seen ESL do. Because for the players, and I knew all of the guys that were affected from NA, it was a shot at a future. And then through no fault of their own, ESL took it away from them and offered them absolutely nothing in return.
Yeah,
there was no financial reimbursement, no promise to get you back down the road. It was shocking. It was truly appalling.
It kind of sucks because like I still remember to this day, like just I remember where I was at. I think I was at it might have been a Flashpoint event or somewhere along those lines, but it was a situation in which like I found out like it's just my features is just kind of like dead in Counter-Strike because at the time I was like financially struggling like a little bit and I couldn't really like afford just to like fully just grind it out. So I remember like looking at that, I'm just like, there's like almost no chance for me to ever like try to make it a pro league again. Like just even no matter how much like willpower like I put in or how much effort I put in, I would have to have a lot of luck involved too. To find people that would want to do the same, that are willing to, that have the talent and capability and worth ethic to also compete at the top and that sort of thing. I just realized, well, there's a new game called Valorant coming out, and and that's pretty much my only other opportunity, and that's something I couldn't waste.
Yeah. Do you ever think about the initial reactions, about like Valorant being a CSGO player's retirement home, and like people saying like, oh, if you came back, you would suck and all that. Did that ever get inside your head at all?
I mean, it is like, I guess maybe sometimes like a little bit annoying, hearing about, it's like, oh, it's like a retirement home. It's not for like, top level players. And I think some people definitely in like North America treat it as such, where it's just like, oh, I'm just gonna come over here and like try to get the easy money. For me, I saw it as a very, very, very rare opportunity that I don't think like you get very often, where it's like you get a chance to reinvent yourself basically, and you get a chance to just reset. I felt like I made so many mistakes, whether that be in Counter-Strike and just in life, and like how I, whether it be with my relationships with like other pros, or just like how I approach the game, and just everything. And I don't know if that's like something I can really like maybe fault myself like too much, because I was just a kid that, I didn't have like a sporting background or anything like that. And most of the time I just sat there like playing like video games, and obviously probably the social skills and that social aspect probably wasn't the best if you have a kid that's just playing 13 hours a day in his room of video games. So for me, it's like I took Valorant as like, while there's a bunch of other pros that obviously aren't at the top in CS like moving over. I mean, there was maybe like one or two top pros that moved over. I took it as like, I think this is like a game that even if like initially it might be filled with like people who are going to use it to like try to get some financial gain. I saw it as like it's going to continue to grow and grow, maybe similar to League of Legends, and eventually it's going to be a major esport, I think. So
it is for sure.
I took it. I took it as like a second chance to just reinvent myself, mainly.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was what I was thinking, because it seemed to me that almost all of the squad, it was kind of like a second chance kind of mindset, because and look, I know FNS felt this way as well. I mean, he was a guy who was widely regarded as a great IGL in North America. But the problem you had was towards the end, what the fuck was there to lead? Like, what could you do?
Exactly.
And then obviously, like say Victor, I remember him, when Swole Patrol were on the ups, I think it was. And you're like, here's a raw, talented player, but there's no opportunities. There's nowhere to craft your skills,
Exactly. And the only way to really, outside of like making a team, the only way that you're going to get recognized by like a lot of these pros, or like even get a chance, is if you're like absolutely like just like putting up like superstar numbers like nonstop, which may not even be your role. Like there's you think of like, also there's some really talented and great support players that you need, and obviously they're probably most teams are going to pick up like those kind of players. Not to mention, you also have to compete with European talent, like, because like at that point, like, why not just pick up a European player? So that was the kind of situation. And you're right, it's like there just wasn't like any opportunity left, and it's kind of like a situation in which like, you can just keep grinding in Counter-Strike and just give it your all. But I mean, I just feel like at that point, you're almost like banging your head against the wall.
Tell me about FNS as an IGL. Sure. What's he like to work under? Because I always really thought he had like a fantastic mind in general. Like, I've met IGLs who had a great mind for Counter-Strike, for League of Legends, whatever the fuck, right? But they know the game, and they're a fucking idiot outside of it. Like, it's as simple as that. Like, they can tell you everything you need to do, but in terms of being a leader of men, they don't have that. In terms of knowing about the world in general, they don't have that. Evan S is a guy, I think he is just like a fucking super smart dude. So what's he like to work with?
He's super smart, and he has that rare quality of being like a leader of men. What you were saying, because I feel like a lot of people don't know about this, but there's people who can call strats. They're good with this, the strategy aspect of the game, but they lack like when you have like 4 or 5 other guys with like differing opinions and differing ways of play. You need someone to like essentially like take all that and like basically force these people to work together and create like a system around that. And that's something he's able to do, in which like he knows what he wants. He has like a vision for the team, you know. It's not just simply like, okay, let's just rush B, or let's just rush A, or like let's just strat. Like he actively like knows what he wants from his players. He knows what roles, he knows like what style he wants to run, whether it be like, you know, maybe it's like some aggressive like poppy style, or like a very slow methodical. You know, he has like game plans, and he has like a vision for the team, and that's something you don't see like very often. And he knows how to get the most out of his players, I think.
Yeah, I think it's good to hear, because I was super interested in how he would adapt and take to a game that's got like all these extra components to it with, player abilities and character abilities rather. But yeah, I mean, he seems to be doing a stellar job with you guys. What about Chet as well? I mean, another guy with a great mind, It was a decent coach over in CSGO. Talk about the working relationship you have with him, and how he works with FNS as well.
I really love Chet. He is actually a workaholic. And I love that about him. Like there's so many nights I can remember where we have like some of the tournament schedules are really brutal, where it's like you get done with like some best of 5 series, and then like you have like
yeah,
you get done with it, and then at like sometimes we would end at 1 or 2 a.m. Because it would go so long. And then we have like a shuttle at like maybe like 1 or 2 next morning, and then you have to do all the prep work for the next team. And something maybe for all those CS fans out there that you may not know about Valorant takes a lot more prep work. It is incredibly prep intensive.
Yeah.
The amount of it for me, like even it takes me sometimes like 3 or 4 hours to get done with like some like what my like game plans and like the stuff I want to do for like certain maps. It takes so much work, because there's so many utilities and so many agents, and just so much that you have to think about and consider about, like, okay, if they have this, what do you have to do? And it's a lot.
Yeah.
So for us, it's like, it's great to have a coach that like just in the middle of the night, like 4 or 5 a.m. he's just out there like writing notes and notes and notes. And you just see it like his desk sometimes, where it's just like you just have pages just scattered everywhere. So I have so much respect for the guy, and just overall he's he almost like kind of commands respect, in the sense where it's just like you're gonna do it his way, which is something that like I feel like is often missing from like, especially from a lot of North American coaches, where they almost try to be friends with the players. They try to be really friendly, but it's like, no, we're gonna do this,
So look, here's a tough question for you, and I want you to kind of link it to all the stuff we've talked about in terms of, how well people have been working and all the prep you've been doing. Which second place do you feel was the one that shouldn't have happened? So you've got, obviously, in March, a second place against the Garden, the North American Challengers final. You have the one against, I think it was XSET in the State North American Challengers 2. And of course, the big one that we've just had, the champions against Loud, which you were favorites for.
I wish I could say multiple. I would say maybe probably the biggest one would be probably against XSET. And the only reason I would say like we should have won that was just because it was like kind of a situation in which like we had I think it was 2 of our guys caught like mid-COVID, and it was like right before like a qualifying game for Copenhagen. So usually how it works is like the first and second place like qualify. So what ended up happening was like for the qualifying game, they caught it, and thankfully it wasn't that bad, and we barely managed to pull that out. It took like some serious willpower, because like I remember my guys just like coughing, and one had to go to like we had to pause like in the middle of games and run to the restroom because he had to like throw up. So
Oh my God.
it was really brutal, and we took everything to qualify for that, and that put us in the grand finals. And for the grand finals, for those who aren't aware, it's kind of like a seeding game a little bit. Obviously, it's still very important because like for some of the seeding games, you get to skip the group stage. You don't have to play a group stage if you get first, so there's a lot of incentive for it. But I remember we qualified, and then a few days pass, and they're at peak COVID, and then we go in that game, and we're just like, I could tell, dude, it was like rough. They were like I could just tell by like how they were moving their mouths. It's like they're barely like it's kind of like on the ground a little bit, all sluggish. I'm like, I felt so bad. So we could 100% won that if they if they weren't feeling that bad. The other one I would say is also the most recent one.
Yeah.
As much respect as I do have for those like loud guys, I felt like it was so close, like especially on.
It
like,
was super fucking. I actually watched it all of this tournament because Slasher, if you know Rod, if you remember him, he's been really pushing me to like get on top of the Valorant shit, and so I watched all this tournament, and bro, like this is as close as a fucking final I think as you can get, really. It was so crazy.
Yeah, and man, it was there were so many rounds I could look back to in which like we I felt like, especially on like the first and the third map, which was like a set and breeze, like there was like a lot of clutches then go our way, and not to mention we threw like so many key rounds. I felt like we had like man advantages, we were up, and then we would make like a single mistake, or we wouldn't properly play, and they absolutely punished us, and I mean, all props to them for being able to do that. But it's like, man, it just sucks to have like so many like man advantage, and not to mention I remember reviewing like some of the set bots, and then I get like spammed through smoke like on 3 separate occasions, or a stray bullet hits me. I'm just like, come on, man, like give me something here. And even for like Breeze, but those guys did deserve it, but it's just sad to think about. It's so sad to think about if we just played like maybe 5% better, 10% better on that day. If I would have played like maybe a little bit better, we could have won that.
I mean, coming, I mean, coming obviously through the lower bracket as well, because Loud did beat you twice.
Yeah, they did.
But the final felt that you guys were a lot closer together in just in skill. Like, it was a really great spectacle. Like, just a really good esports competition. I got to ask though, like, it looked like you guys were fucking done by the time Haven like rolled around. Like, I don't know if that's true, but it looked like you guys had, when you see that moment where, oh, fuck it, we just lose then, I guess. The mentality changes. I was watching it, and obviously I'm watching on a stream, so what the fuck do I know? But it looked like you guys had just sort of kind of not given up, but you realized on some level it wasn't going to be your day. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it was rough. Like how some of those like rounds like played out and stuff like that. It got to a point where it was just like it felt. I could tell like maybe in like the team atmosphere, like it just felt like it felt a little dead. I'm not gonna lie. And there's a little bit of context as well that you may not know. Is like there was like a little bit of stuff that was going behind the scenes, in which like the team was like undecided on like even the future, even before like franchising. There was like some there was like some drama like behind the scenes and stuff like that, and it kind of I think everyone knew like going into it that might be our last event. Like, we're not sure, and it kind of sucked because like I could see it like happening where it's just like you keep pushing, you keep like trying to find like motivation and stuff like that, and it kind of felt like it did collapse towards the end. And
I know you're gonna say no, but can you talk about what the drama is at all?
I can't go into it too much. Sorry.
Okay.
But
I got to ask, it is.
Of course. No, but Yeah, there was some drama, and I could feel like the team like at that point it was just like you said, it felt kind of like almost like defeated.
Mm.
And it sucks because like I I want to win that thing, I really do want to win
Sure,
that thing,
yeah.
like until like the very, very last round. But it's like, I don't know, it just felt like everything just kind of collapsed, like after those like really close games.
Mm. Let's talk a little bit about Loud, though. I mean,
Sure.
I knew very early on that Brazil was going to be one of the better countries
Oh yeah.
in Valorant. The game seemed like insanely popular very early on there,
Yeah.
and obviously we're still in the very it feels like Valorant's been around a while now, but we're still in the very early stages of an esport. And so the regions that have the popularity and have the sheer volume of people playing it, they're generally going to be the ones that produce the better talent just by law of averages, right? And
Yeah, just by the
so,
amount of people
yeah.
interested. Yeah.
So you've had you've had like a fantastic rivalry with Loud.
Oh yeah.
You guys have beaten them, back and forth. They've beaten you. I think you might even be even on like games won against each other right now.
The most
True?
crazy thing, yeah, we're 3-3. We're 3-3 right now, and we're also 9-9 in maps. So it's like dead.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like dead even, and it's so sad because like there's a chance like we never may be able to like finish that. So it's a little sad, but
Well, it is one of the great rivalries right now. It's another reason
yeah.
why it is a shame we're never going to get a decider. Somebody should just put some money up now and have let's have an exhibition match.
One last one.
One last match. Yeah, like someone should just put up 50 grand, winner takes all.
Exactly.
Fuck it. Yeah. But anyway, tell me about them, because I know you must know those guys pretty well now. And it seemed there was like a lot of good sportsmanship on show at the end. A lot of respect between you guys. So I thought you might just want to tell me a little bit about that team and kind of,
Sure.
what makes them so good.
Loud is actually they are actually an incredible team. I'm not gonna lie to you. They not only just in game, but like out of game. Like some of the personalities on that team is just like incredibly like respectful like opponents. Like I don't think you could build like a more ideal team. They look like the like pinnacle of like professionalism. But give you like some context. So like with this team, it's like they kind of came out of like nowhere a little bit. They were like built up with like some like new talent and some talent that was like with like a that was kind of like a part of like other teams. But again, essentially they came together with some old new talent, built a brand new roster, and like right away they went like completely undefeated. They went completely undefeated until I think it was the grand finals of Iceland. They beat every single person, both in the region, without like dropping a map. They they were like some superstar team, and from what I've seen and everything that I've heard from them, they play the game in the right way. They're incredibly like disciplined. They have like good structure. There's like no egos on the team. Like everyone like sacrifices for each other. I mean, it's like almost like a dream tale of like a roster, and it's like I can't say like enough like good things about them. And just like even like out of game, they walk up to you and it's like I've watched so much of you guys, for our region and stuff like that. I've seen you guys how you improved, and you guys do a really great job. They walk up to you and tell you that they're incredible guys, and like both like in and out of game.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever really seen like even like a Brazilian team like that in my experience. It's they're incredible.
Yeah, well, I mean, now that Brazil's got a world champion as well, I expect, and obviously they're in the franchise league as well. I really expect that scene to accelerate, because it's exactly what we saw in CS:GO when
100%.
Fallen came and built that team, found Coldzera, found his muse, and went and fucking tore shit up for a year or two. So
they remind me a lot of that. A lot of that as well. It's like Saucy kind of like reminds me of Fallen. Saucy is just like he's a really incredible guy, very like charismatic. Essentially is like what I'm looking for. Very charismatic, like popular, and then you have like all the raw talent and like the other members. The cool thing as well that I seen from that team is like I don't know if there's like really like what's the word I'm looking for? There's not. I felt like with the past like SK and LG rosters where you had some superstar and like Cold Zera, and you had like also Fallen. You know, obviously everyone talks about Fallen as Op as IGL. They have like I feel like they're an even better team where it's like all 5 members of that squad, they're all incredible.
Yeah.
they all do like the world like just extremely well. They there's like I said, I I can't say enough good things.
Best team in the world right now for you?
I would say so. Yeah, as of right now, they're definitely the best right now. I would like to say EMEA is still like really strong, but I don't know what happened at this champions. They like FPX especially, they were pushing the meta like quite a bit. Something that's kind of like happening for those who aren't like familiar with Valorant is like usually what teams have done in the past is they run like one comp. They find that really comp that like really suits like everyone else. And Valorant's trying to get to that stage where it's like similar to League, where it's like you start picking and counter picking for like different agents, and you're starting to like, you know, change it up like a lot more. So you can't like be anti-threaded as easily. It's a really hard thing to do because like it's hard to be consistent and have like all these game plans like on all these different agents, but it's starting to transition to be much more, you know, much more complex, I guess.
Yeah. So I mean, look, overall, because you know, I'll put a pin in the OpTic talk now, I guess, and we'll move on to a few more general topics. But I mean, overall, if it was to be the end of the OpTic team, which reading between the lines, it sounds like it kind of is there a proudest moment, a big regret? Anything that you're going to kind of take away from this for the rest of your playing career?
I don't know if there's like something in general maybe that I would take away. There's like something that's really specific. I think what it taught me though is that it kind of taught me what like a winning team is like, because like I feel like for a lot of people, it's like once you've like find like a little bit of success and you know kind of like what it looks like and what to expect, it's kind of you have like a better idea of like how to kind of like recreate it. I think it's something that also taught me is like I feel like you need like a good like diverse set of people. And not to say like we're like super like diverse and stuff like that, but like we have like a bunch of different personalities that all like kind of complement each other. And that's something that like I guess like I never really considered with the whole OpTic team. It's like it's something in which like a team is like more than just having like a you know a bunch of people great at the role. It also comes down to a lot of stuff like in and out of game, whether that be like personalities, like adding to each other's like strengths/weaknesses, you know, fulfilling the role, and that's like kind of the secret to really building like a successful team and like having like a winning team essentially. I guess that's something I would take away from it. Not to mention just like all the moments that we had.
yeah. I mean, obviously, Reykjavik, the high point again with Loud in the final there. Are you worried that if you get into another team, the IGL won't understand you as much? Because you know it's like it is kind of like a relationship, right? Where if you're a star player and the IGL puts trust in you and it works, you might want to replicate it and say, hey, if you give me this spot on this map and let me play this and let me do this, it'll all be good. But it might not play out, or the IGL might not want to do things the same way. Are you worried that like if you go and play with somebody else, it won't be as good as what you've had at OpTic?
Yeah, I mean for sure. That's always been like a concern for me. So something as you said, like that's kind of like a relationship for building like a really successful and strong roster. Is like you need like a really good leader, and generally you need like some form of star player. But you can also build a team in which like you have like almost like multiple stars. But in general, like how the basic formula is like really getting the leader, maybe like a star player and a very strong like supporting cast. I'm definitely worried because you know, having played with like John for so long, like I really understand how he thinks. Like we have like I think we have like a really good system that we built, and you know, obviously like finding somebody else, maybe worse, and you may end up, it may up in hurting you a little bit more.
Yeah.
Just simply because if you're not getting the correct spots, or that, he doesn't know your strengths and he doesn't know how to use you and set you up and put you in the correct spots, it can really damage your overall performance, both as like an individual and from like a team perspective. So it is a little scary, but the one good thing I will say is, like, usually with like a lot of teams nowadays, is they have a much bigger coaching staff. And I think that's something you're starting to see like a lot more, where it's like the coaches are the ones who are scouting and they have like some very good like intimate knowledge. Like, for example, Sean Gares has like a large coaching staff over at like 100 Thieves. You've seen even like MCE over at the Guard, where they're the ones who are really like controlling everything, and they're putting it all in place, and they kind of like run the shows, and they help create the strategies and help like decide like the future of the teams. So it's a little bit less of a concern, because like, at least for like a star player, if they have like a really strong like coaching staff, I can kind of put my trust in that staff, because I think they know and understand like how what makes like this person good. And obviously there's also a few like good IGLs, for example, like Cloud9, there's Vanity, who has like a lot of experience. I think he kind of knows what he's talking about. So
no, I totally get it. I hope wherever you do end up, I hope it's something, like, it's a balancing act. I mean, you're a good kid. I've known that for a long time. So, I don't think you're going to fuck it up. But, obviously, the balancing act is you have to be just enough of an asshole now. That's the thing. Because if you're a star player and you're in good form, you've got to get enough of your own way to still be good, but without being a prick and making everyone else on the team your bitch. It's like people don't realize, man, it's such a tough tightrope to walk when you're good at the game.
It is. I've had like some disagreements and stuff, especially with chat and stuff over like some like agent comps and stuff like that. And it's like a give and take, right? Because I feel like there's times in which like I suggested a change and it wasn't that good, and I really felt like it would be pretty good, and his way ended up being better. Yeah. And there was like a time in which like there was like a comp and like a few other changes that I made that ended up working fantastically. So it's like, like you said, it's a balancing act of like, you need to push for some stuff. You definitely need to, push for some stuff and have like some like freedom, but you can't go overboard, because like then you, like you said, you kind of end up ruining that relationship a little bit, and it ends up like just hurting the team like even more, because it's like that person has a harder time working with you. He doesn't want to see you like, how it is.
Oh yeah, very much so. Well, look, so the reason this podcast, funnily enough, ended up happening, we started planning this back in June. Which again, it shows how crazy esports actually is. That was a totally different time. That was a different world. Yeah. But one of the things we talked about, and this is what the original podcast was going to be about mostly, was the kind of NA attitude. I think you reached out to me because I'd done. I think it was either an episode of By the Numbers, or I had been talking about it on my stream, and basically just how the NA mentality is a big issue in a lot of esports. And what I mean by NA mentality is, I think it was when we were talking about Stewie, and it's again, no hate on Stewie. Stewie thinks I hate him now or whatever, and it's like, it ain't like that. I'm a grown ass man. I ain't got time to hate on kids just trying to live their dreams and make money off video games, right? And Stewie's a good guy, but at the end of the day, I think what he did towards the end of his Evil Geniuses career was kind of a bit like, disgraceful, like, because you're being paid to play CS, you're grinding away in Valorant. You're, could have been at tournaments, you weren't, and it's just like he checked out but stuck around, and I hate that. And I see NA players end up there all the time, where it's like, the paycheck's good, but I hate the game, or the paycheck's good, but I hate doing the work, or I want to be somewhere else. And it's just like, I don't know, we NA teams always seem to fucking end up there, and I don't know Why? I don't think there's anything unique about Americans or American culture that would put people into that position. But I've just seen it now for 20 years in every game. And so I'm really at a loss to kind of explain or quantify how culturally that keeps happening within esports particularly. So I guess that's what we're going to talk about. And I know you got some thoughts on it.
Yeah, I feel like it's been kind of like a problem for, like you said, it's been a problem for like so long, and I don't know really where it like kind of stems from either. My guess would be like what ends up happening is like for the longest time, I felt like a lot of like at least teams and stuff were just run by the players essentially. For the most part, it's always been like about, you know, you develop a team, you get to be friends with on that team, and then generally what happens is you know, you obviously meet other people in the scene, and what ends up happening is, you know, you want to play with those friends, and it becomes like almost like a tight-knit group of which like you always try to end up playing with like the people you're close to essentially in the scene. And I know when I was first coming up, usually what ends up happening is you're kind of locked out of that area, because I remember there being, for example, like pro 10 mans, and even though you could be like doing like pretty well, you need to have like the connections to like get inside. I remember there's so many times in which like I think I even got like kicked out of like rank S at like some point because you know, I wasn't like close enough like friends with like some people, or there'd be times in which like I want to play like these particular spots, and then like if you're, especially if like you're a new player and then you want to play like a particular role, and like, you know, maybe that pro is like kind of like known for that role, it's like it gets kind of like bad blooded where it's like, who do you think you are? Like taking my like spot on like that thing. So like,
I mean, shit, they do that in Europe too. That's caused so much fucking drama and face.
Yeah, it's like a thing of like you almost have to you almost have to, you know, praise them and, you know, get on your knees and like that sort of thing, and you have to like get into like good graces and like that sort of thing. It's like a very like balancing act. Otherwise, you know, like if they end up hitting you, it just it won't be good for your career. So it's like it's a very like harsh like balance until you actually like get pro and you gain like maybe a little bit more respect. It's very hostile to like new players when I was like first coming up, and I can remember like so many times. So I don't know. I feel like more than anything, I know I'm not spoken like more than anything, but I just don't think teams should be like player driven, and you just
I agree. Yeah,
you need to have like a good management team, and you need to have like a really good you know, coaching staff, someone who won't let like that kind of culture like develop where it's like, you know, we're all in this together, we're all a team, you know, like nobody else on, you know, maybe the org can like touch us, or you know, I got your back, you got my back kind of thing. And it's good to have like, you know, relationships within that group, but like when sometimes you need to make like some really tough decisions, like if someone is not performing well or they're not like doing well. And there also might be even players in which like you may hate or you don't want to play with, but you need that guy like on your team. Like that guy will that guy is like what's needed for that role, or he's the best you can do that. And I feel like a lot of time what ends up happening is where it's just like you just end up playing with like the same people get like recycled, or the people that you don't like, you know, you just absolutely refuse to play with them, and you accept something else, you know. So it's just like that's how I feel, at least.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely an issue when the lunatics are running the asylum, for want of a better phrase. You know, like I've seen it a lot, because what ends up happening as well is the worst part about player-run teams is when they start to get picking like they get to pick the coach and the analyst, and eventually it becomes like a fucking fraternity or something. You know, what they're doing there is they are essentially creating barriers away from accountability. And if you're a manager or an owner and you're letting that happen, because we all know what the process is, you fire the analyst, then you fire the coach, then maybe a player goes, and guess what? The players get to pick the next one, and then last one in, first one out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It
fucked
becomes
up.
like it becomes like a cycle, in my opinion. I think you can see that with like maybe like a lot of rosters where it's just like it takes like a while before maybe like the quote unquote core of the problem or the actually true problem is actually replaced. Because what ended up happening is like you keep replacing people, and then the results really don't change too much. And it's like, oh, it takes a while before it's like, yeah, I think these guys are actually the problem
Yeah.
in the team. So that's something that I really hope like changes in the future, where it's like it just kind of becomes like more professional like over time, where it's it's more like the NBA, where you have like general managers, or whether it be like the NFL, you have like people who their only interest is getting a team that wins, and they're not about like relationships. You either get the job done, or if you don't follow the game plan, then you're kind of like out.
Yeah.
Which that's something that I hope continues to develop.
I'll tell you another thing though. One of the things that I also think has made it worse the last few years, I think it's the streaming influencer culture aspect to it. Because if you're a player and you're popular, and let's say you blow up like tens, like tens blowing up in Valorant was crazy because he's good, but he didn't even have a fucking CSGO career, really. Like, he was just in for a bit, and people knew he could be good. And then he does a stream, and he's in like a fucking made outfit or something, and then he's like the biggest esports guy in the world. It's like, what the fuck has happened? Like, and it just went, and I think if it's in the back of a lot of people's heads that, oh, I could be like tens, I could have 50,000 people watching me, 75,000 people watching me, making loads of money, I wouldn't even need to compete. I think it invites a little bit of complacency. Like the plan B is too there. Yeah,
It does a little bit because it removes some like external like incentive, I guess, in the sense of like you make a ton more money streaming. I mean, like if you're like a North American pro and you're like semi big, you can make well above like what your salary is. So it's like a lot. You get in your head like a lot of the time. It's like, well, like, it doesn't really matter like the tournament result or like whatever happens here. I can just make like 20-30K just streaming. Something ridiculous. There's no like fear of like job loss when you could just stream.
Yeah.
So you have like that financial cushion, and not to mention it's also a situation where when you continue to stream and build, it kind of becomes like a bigger priority sometimes, in the sense that you're focused on building like your brand, but your competition and the competitive aspect now starts to suffer because like you're spending all this time like building your brand. It's tough though, because I do want to say, like, on one hand though, I'm sure you've seen this quite a few times where it's essentially that when a pro is like done with a career, you can even look at like the NFL and like the NBA. Once they're out, in the next few years, they're like broke. So
it's crazy numbers. I want to say it's because there was a documentary about that. There was like an ESPN 30 for 30. I think it's just called Broke, and I think it's like 2/3 of people in the NFL are broke within inside of 5 years.
No, 100%, and that's a big thing. Is so like it is important to build a brand, I think, because like you're especially in like esports where your time is so short. You definitely need to do like and build a brand like outside, but again, it's such a balance because you can't go too heavy on it and like your competition starts to suffer. In my opinion, especially if you're a competitor, like your primary focus should always be the competitive side of the game, obviously.
Yeah.
And you can, if you have some extra free time or something like that, after you've done all your individual training or prep work and stuff like that, feel free to stream, But when it starts to become a thing where it's like you're streaming like almost as much as like you're competing and like practicing, or the streaming starts to exceed that, that's where I kind of I'm like, it kind of feels like your priorities are like changing, and it's not like you're not looking at the competitive side anymore. And
Yeah.
that's where it's kind of like, I don't like that.
Well, that's why I think it's good that you're like the poster boy for NA at the moment. And like, it is crazy because I remember when you had like, I don't know, fucking 3,000 Twitter followers. Like when I was like messaging you for this, I was like, you got like over 250,000 followers now. Like, what the fuck's happened?
Yeah.
Crazy. How are you finding the change? Like, because you're in the spotlight now, brother.
It's quite the experience, I'm not gonna lie, and even like I guess in my daily life, people are like coming up to me, it's like, yo, can I get a photo? I'm just like, yeah, sure, I got you. It's definitely something that I don't think a lot of people expect themselves to be in that kind of thing. It's the thing you see on movies and you're just like, wow, that it's pretty crazy. But yeah, I don't it's been a wild experience, and I'm just thankful that I had the opportunity and like some luck to be able to get where I am. Without Valorant, without that second chance, there's a good chance that I wouldn't have this success and opportunity.
Yeah.
So I'm very thankful for that coming along, and for me being able to like seize that, not screw it up like I did with Counter-Strike.
I don't think that was your fault, bro.
Yeah, I mean, looking back, maybe I did the best I could, or maybe I didn't know what I did now. But I always look back and I'm like, I could have done stuff better. But I guess that's life, right? You learn from your mistakes, and you learn like what you did wrong and that sort of thing.
Well, some people do, yeah.
Yeah,
not
there's
everyone.
definitely some people. True, but yeah, I do have like some regrets, but like you said, it's hard to have regrets. You just do. I think everyone's just trying to do the best they can.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely worked out for the best so far, I think. I mean, at the end of the day, I'll be honest with you. If you were like, even if you were still playing CSGO, and let's say you were on a Liquid or an EG right now, you're having a much better time. That's all I'm going to say about it. You're better off where you are. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, and not to mention Valorant is actually, I do actually enjoy it more than CS. I remember after like Counter-Strike, when I was taking like kind of like a little bit of break, I was playing League of Legends, and I always thought the abilities was really cool. So when it came to Valorant, it suits me better. I really like to just like all the different stuff you can do with like all the different abilities. It makes it like incredibly like, I think in the future it's going to be such a crazy game, with like all the different ages and stuff you have to account for it. Even now, it's a hard game. I know people give it slack. Some people are like, oh, it's like it's just an easy free game, stuff like that. But no, this game is hard, and the amount of like different regions there are with like really good players, it is hard. I can tell you, like the amount. There's so much work you have to do for like just prepping in this so much.
Perfect lead into my penultimate question.
Sure.
Not the type of question I would usually ask, because I'm an old man. I don't give a fuck about the games. Any game that requires reflexes, I don't play them anymore. I'm out. I'm done. But obviously, a lot of kids looking up to you, seeing how you've got to the top of your game, they're going to want to know, what is the one thing, if you had to give like one absolute definitive piece of advice that helped you develop your talent, what the fuck would it be?
Sure. I think the most important thing, like more than anything, is probably the most important thing is goals. And more than anything, I think what you need to do is you need to have like obviously one big goal. Like what do you want to be? What is it? Pro? You want to be you can apply it to almost anything. You want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, like whatever. You have one big goal, and then it's almost like a tree in which you break it down. It's like, okay, how do I achieve this? It's like, well, if you want to be a pro, then I need to grind my mechanics. And then like you break it down even further. It's like, with mechanics, what does that look like? Movement, aim, and then how do I improve those? You keep breaking it down until you have goals that you can do onto a day-in-day basis. So each day you're like, okay, I need to work on this, and that will help me achieve this, that will help me achieve this. And basically every single day, try to do something that will make you just slightly a little bit better day by day. And I think that's probably one of the most important things. And the other thing I would say is, while experiment and, look at other people for like motivation and for like inspiration, don't try to be those people, because like everyone has a different style, everyone has different strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
And it's important to find what you're good at and what makes you like happy, what do you excel at, and work towards that. Don't try to, if you're not, everyone's going to be a superstar player ultimately.
That second part is really good advice, because the thing that always blows my mind is like whenever there's a good player that gets to the top, everyone wants to use their config, because if it's the settings that they use, yeah, you know what I mean? And it's like, kids, it's about you. It's about you finding your comfort level. You like, I've seen people play for years on like terrible resolutions that is like, what are you doing? And they'll be like, oh, Simple uses this, bro. It's like, yeah, he's created a particular set for him. And that, you need to do that for you. You don't just get to be him. Yeah, it's so crazy, bro.
Yeah, I mean, even for me, I play at like some, like I don't use like my space bar. I have very weird, like very weird binds. My keyboard's like almost like full 90 degrees sometimes. It's a wild setup, but it's like stuff that, I use that because like I used to play on like a laptop, and it was like a very weird, like I'm trying to do that setup. So it's like something that's like developed because of that. But yeah, more than anything, it's just like you said, it's like, you can look towards, like, for example, like if you want to use Simple as example, you can look towards like stuff that like little tricks he does that might be, you can add onto your game, or shots he's able to hit and like stuff like that, and try to work on that yourself. But like, don't change your sense of like 3.1 or like 4 or whatever it is, and try to hit every single flick and try to exactly copy it. Experiment, like, don't get me wrong, experiment around, try like all these different pros and stuff like that. But ultimately, like what I found success was when I stopped looking towards like these other people so much, after I experimented around and started like just figuring out what I like, ultimately, and building something that I like and how I play in my own, way and style, and trying to work on that. And that's where I found success.
So last question. It's the one I always end all the podcasts with. And it's kind of fucked up for you, because it's, where are people going to be able to see you next? Like, are you competing anywhere next? Are you going to be streaming? Is there anything lined up? So obviously you might not know.
Well, honestly, the future is unknown right now, but nothing's been signed just yet. But if you do want to, follow me and catch up, you can always follow me at Twitter at twitter.com/yay. I think like I was, it's cool that I got the alias.
Yeah, but, I saw that. You see, you've got real clout now. You actually managed to get the fucking yay off that one like Twitter account with like 10 followers or whatever.
Thankfully, yeah. And you can probably follow me, and I'll probably drop a few links to the stream like once in a while. But I don't know where I'm going to compete next, but hopefully it's at the international tournament in Brazil. But it's up in the air, maybe the OpTic guys stick together, maybe we don't. Who knows?
All right. Well, look, man, best of luck. I know it's a real crazy time at the moment. There's agents fucking misrepresenting them, players. There's probably some fake agent right now saying, hey, I represent Yay, and if you pay me, it's fucking, Valorant is crazy at the moment.
No, yeah, it actually is wild. It's a little bit of topic maybe for another time. I don't know how much time we have, but there's some predatory agents like out there, like taking like 15-20% of like people's like annual salary, which is just it's criminal.
Well, listen, maybe we'll do like a 4 Horsemen episode, man, because one of these agents is going to get busted, and then we'll bring you in to like talk about it. You can dish all the dirt, so you'll be on a new team by then and safe. So, but anyway, look, a real pleasure to talk to you, man. Like a long overdue catch up, and I really hope it all works out for you. You definitely deserve to be at the highest level of Valorant. I'm confident you will be. So, all right, guys, there it is. That's the great yay. I hope you enjoyed us talking. Make sure you follow him on Twitter. Support this guy. He's a good guy. He's going to change your name for the better. That was the Richard Lewis
I hope
show.
so.
Yeah, we'll see. Can it be done? But yeah, that was Richard Lewis show. So, you know, I don't know when the next episode will be. I never do. I don't know who the guest will be. I never do. But make sure you tune in, like, subscribe, comment, all of that good stuff. And I'll see you next time. Till then, take care of yourself. Bye.
He's the man to do the damage. Oh! As he looks